Hello, my name's Tracy, and Myf and I met 18 months, 2 years ago.
More than that.
Was it
two
really?
and a bit years it's been.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we had a conversation in Chris and Gayle's house over fish and chips, over my experience of being a child of protest, I would say. So my dad was a striking miner in the 80s, so I was 3 at that time. And like you said, when you are a child, it's just kind of a norm. My dad was going away. Obviously, he was going away to picket and would be gone for a few days and then would come home. My mother was pregnant with my brother at the time and was dealing with the food parcels. So that was her role in it. Again, it was completely normal to me, as it was with all the children in my thrin that I would go to. So then how that impacted my life, I suppose, is I am not involved in protest like some of your amazing stories, but I am a protest photographer. So I began my photography journey with protests in 2019, 2020, when I got involved with the protest to keep A&E open down in Llantrisant. So that's when I started going out and about and taking photos, met some amazing, amazing people, and then that kind of snowballed into involvement with Black Lives Matters, with the Kill Bill. So when we were talking about the government changing policy to the Kill Bill, there was a lot of protests in Cardiff, because we were probably going on one a week at one point, weren't we? With the Sarah Everard, and there was a lot of other things with the South Wales Police. Free Sianda, I don't know if anybody was seen that, and still that continues now. So I was in Cardiff last Saturday with the big Palestinian protest, taking photos down there, and that's my way of trying to contribute, I suppose, to how we make change. I think it's really important to share stories and emotions, and if I can kind of capture the emotion of these protests, and that kind of impacts people who are not involved in those protests, or then that goes, that affects me, and that brings other people into the protest, then that's a good job for me. But yeah, listening to stories, it's been really powerful today, and thank you for sharing. But equally, when you go to the marches, and if it's a long-standing thing, you get to see the same people, hear their stories, get to know them, and I'm really privileged that people allow me in those situations to take photos of them and share their stories in my own way.
Yeah, and Tracy's got a brilliant Instagram account where you can see all her photos. What's it called? Tales from the Forgotten?
From the Forgotten, yeah.
With an underscore somewhere in there.
2 underscores, yeah.
Yeah, but worth checking out for definite, yeah. Just before you go, one of the bits that I really remember from our conversation was you going that your dad would never look at a Fray Bentos pie.
I tell this story a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm sure for some of you as well, so we would receive food parcels during the strike that people would kindly donate food to us. And obviously there were a lot of tins, but mainly Fray Bentos pies. And at one point there was about 5 or 6 stacked under the bed, and my dad has vowed now, well, we're talking 40 years later, he will never ever eat another Fray Bentos pie.
Poor Fray Bentos. Oh, thank you very much.
That's okay,
Tracy.
thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Maria, and I think my story starts back in 1969 when my parents moved me and my 2 sisters from Port Talbot to just outside Bridgend. And my elder sister went to comprehensive school. My younger sister went to primary school, but I ended up in the reception class of the comprehensive school with no records. Now, our school had only just transferred from being a grammar school to being a comprehensive school, and there was still amongst the teachers very much an ethos that children got streamed. So without records, the headmaster of the school asked me if there was anybody in the school that I knew, and I did. I knew one girl called Jane. So he said, in that case, we'll put you in Jane's class. Now, our streaming went A, B and C, previously grammar school. D and E, could go, you know, secondary modern, but a bit clever. F, plasticine. Jane was in E, so I got stuck in E as well. At the end of 1 year, I got bounced up to D, which was pretty good for secondary modern, but absolute rubbish for grammar. And everybody was destined to do CSEs. And I stuck there for the rest of my school career, even though actually I was not that stupid. But everybody else in the class had low expectations, so I kind of like just went along with the crowd. Until it came time to choose subjects to do at O-level. And we had been told that if you got over 50% in your end of term exams, you could do O-levels. And this was really important to me, not because I wanted to do O-levels, and not because I wanted to do CSEs, but because I couldn't cope with doing a mixture of both. It had to be all, or it had to be all of that. So we had this 50%, and I worked my socks off. And in every single subject, I went past 50%. So they said, okay, Maria, you can do O-levels in maths and English and Welsh and needlework and cookery. Geography is full. Sorry about that, you're going to have to do CSE. And I said, but I did what you asked me to do. I got over the 50%. And they said, yeah, but geography is full from people from A, B, and C, the old grammar school. And I thought this was wrong. And I think it was not then about wanting to do geography. It was about right and wrong. They had said, if you do this, we will do that. So I did this, and they said, we weren't really telling the truth. So I went to my form teacher, because I was a child who always did what they were told. I went to my form teacher, and I said, I really want to do O-level geography. And he said, you can't do it. And I went, but I got more than my 50%. And he said, well, you can only go and see Mr. Kelly, the head of geography, and see what he says. So I went to see Mr. Kelly, who was ferocious. He really was a vile, authoritarian man. He put the fear of God into anybody. And I shook and I shook and I shook, and I said, I want to do O-level. And he said, did you get over 50%? And I said, yes. And he went, but you're in D. We can't do it because the chairs are all full and there's no room for you, and we've got better children, most of whom their parents are rich and they'll send them on school trips and, you know, all this kind of thing. And I said, but I got my 50%. And he said, it doesn't matter, I haven't got room for you in the class. So I sat down on the floor, and I stayed sitting down on the floor because I'd gone to see him at lunchtime, and I had my sandwiches with me, so I had my sandwiches on the floor. And I'd been to the toilet before I went to see him, so I knew I was good for another 3 or 4 hours. So I sat there, and the bell rang, and he said, you have to go to your form now. And I went, well, no, I'm going to stay. And he said, but I haven't got room. So he tried to persuade me. Then he sent a child to go and get my form teacher, who came and pointed out to me that actually, if I were to work really hard, I could get a grade 1 CSE, and that was equivalent to a grade 6 O-level. But it wasn't about grades, and it wasn't about geography. It was about a promise that he had said, over 50%, you can do it. So I stayed there, and then he sent for the deputy headmaster, who also tried, and I had this sort of thing, this is not like you, Maria. You know, you don't usually, we've never had to have a word with you before. And then they sent for Mr. Hughes, the headmaster, who could have invaded Poland if he wanted to. And he said, I think we've had enough of this now, Maria. And all the time the clock was ticking, and classes were coming in and out, and stepping over me and sitting down, and all the time I was getting more and more of a taste for geography, which was great. And in the end, I think it was about 5 minutes before the afternoon bell went that Mr. Kelly broke and said, okay, you can do it. Now, that was in about July of 1972, I think. My birthday's in August, and we weren't rich, but I saved my pocket money like never before. And in August, when my birthday is, I went to Smith's and I bought field work in geography. Thank you. And it's been on the shelf ever since with my little pencil notes in, because at the end of 2 years, I promised myself that any O-level that I got more than a grade 3 in, I would do the A-level. And I got grade 3 in geography. And I went on to do the A-level in geography, and also went on to do economics and British Constitution, which piqued my interest in things like radical economics and governance rather than politics, which is why what really upset me with the last government were not the bills which came past, but the proroguing of Parliament, which made me absolutely incandescent that a government that is there by the democratic will of the people could then try and subvert the people's will. Anyway, I then went to see a careers teacher, and this is just a sort of an illustration of what education was like in the 70s. And I really wanted to go to university and study something like geography. And the teacher said, there aren't any jobs in geography, the careers teacher. He said, this is what you do. If you get 3 A-levels, you can go to university. If you fail an A-level and get 2 A-levels, you go on to do teacher training. If you fail 2 A-levels, you get a job in a bank. And if you don't get any A-levels at all, you get yourself a job in an office and find a husband. Now, that was the careers teacher. Now, it so happened I failed an A-level, so I went off to do teacher training, but I didn't want to be a teacher. So I wanted an easy life. And for some reason, I ended up training to become a home economics teacher. And I was going to concentrate on cookery, and that would have gone really well if I hadn't fallen asleep in a 2-hour lecture on how to slice an onion, slid off my chair and hit the ground. So they transferred me to textiles, and that started a love of textiles. And how this story goes through a very circuitous route is that I got to know you because we had the protest dolls in the window. Because as we came out of the pandemic, the Penarth Gallery, the Turner House Gallery, didn't have an exhibition lined up for when lockdown ended. So the Heritage Crafts Association said, we'll do one. And I had been banging on to them for ages that doll making is a form of a heritage craft. So I produced 15, I think, protest dolls who protested everything from domestic violence to Black Lives Matters to saving the NHS. There was one based on my Auntie June, who died in a nursing home during lockdown, of a woman dressed in black that was holding a banner saying, we didn't party, or something like that. And they were really powerful, and they came here after that exhibition, and I think they got a lot of feedback, didn't they? And then after that, when Gayle and Chris put on the Pitchfork exhibition, the theme going on, and I introduced Gayle and Chris to the start of the crossover now between geography and protest, to the Kinder Scout protest, which, you know, I don't think you'd heard of before, but then you got the tea towel, didn't you? And this is something that you probably don't know, but I had wound Hugh Aranka Davis up to come and see the exhibition, the Pitchfork exhibition. And he had admired, I think, the dolls. And one of the things we do in our house every year is we have what's called a log burner experience afternoon, where we flog 20 people we know, £5 ticket, to come in, sit in front of our fires, and we feed them tea and cake all afternoon. And I think a great time is had by all. got your last ticket, your tickets for this year. That's right, we sold out. Anyway, Hugh came, and Hugh's wife came, and she said to me, have you still got the dolls? And I went, what dolls? And she went, the Kinder Scout dolls. And I went, oh yeah, they're upstairs somewhere. And she went, I'd like to buy one. Tell Hugh. Oh. And I thought, God, he's a politician. She's going to buy him a doll for Christmas, you know? And I went, all right. I said, they're not for sale. And she went, but they were for sale in the gallery. And I went, yeah, I said, that's because Gayle always puts things for sale. But I said, but generally, my work is not for sale. And if it is for sale, it's for sale for as long as I want it to be for sale, for as much as I want it to be for sale, and then it's not for sale anymore, and it's not for sale. And she went, so she bought a jug on the way out anyway from the shop. But my point is that teacher who told me I couldn't do geography led me eventually to doing a degree in home economics, followed by a BA in University of Glamorgan, which led to me doing an MA in creative crafts. And when the moderator came to see my work in the final exhibition, he said to me, when you do your PhD, he said, do it in cultural geography, because that's what your work is. And I'm not actually doing the PhD because, no, because the problem I've got with the PhD is people keep telling me what they want it to be. So instead, I'm writing a book, and this book, which was the first I ever bought, has led to this book, which is the latest one I've bought, because the book is going to be about the crafts that were practiced by lone women walking through early medieval Wales. And my point is that if you are in a position of authority, whether you're a mum, a dad, a teacher, if you promise somebody something, deliver on it. Do not say you can do this and I'll do that. I'm not a protester. I'm in awe of the people who are protester, but I am subversive, and I will have my revenge on people who tell me to do something I don't want to do.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So this was originally an Athea library, and 2013, 2012, Chris, my lovely husband, took it over the building next door, and he set it up as a woodworking workshop where he makes furniture and sculpture, and he made the 2018 Eisteddfod chair, which made him famous in Wales, and
celebrity. Street named after
yeah, so the street is named for Dear Eisteddfod in honour of Chris making the chair. He was hoping it'd be Chris Williams Street, but we were not having any of that. And it just seemed everywhere Chris went, either a school or somewhere to work, it would shut down. So Chris moved in next door, and 6 months later they said, well, we're going to shut the library. And at that time, we were campaigning to save Cunnon Valley Museum in Aberdare. So we were leading the campaign to save that. And that was in the first phase of austerity-driven budget cuts. So long story short, after a long period of time, we managed to install a trust there, and the gallery and museum is still running. The second phase was the libraries. I think we lost 13, was it? 13 libraries. This was one, and we did our like marching up and down in the street and writing letters. And then we found out 6 weeks before it went to auction, we found out that it was going to auction. We didn't have any money, so we asked if we could rent it. They said no. So then we went to see people and said, would you write us a letter? And cut long story short, eventually they said, well, if you write a 35-page business plan, you take it over as a business, we might consider giving you a lease. And we called in a lot of favours. And I had no intention, I'm a researcher and artist, got no intention of running a gallery. Didn't want Gayle's gallery or Roger's gallery. I had no interest in any of that nonsense. I just thought it's an amazing building. I'd seen the other libraries being sold off and turned into housing. I said, you know, and it was like at the heart of the village, and it was I was just so angry that they could just make a decision and not understand the repercussions of losing buildings that are publicly accessible. So it was born out of protest. We did get them to agree to a lease. Then we had to wait 6 months for the keys, which was awful, but we did get it eventually. And we decided to call it the Workers because we wanted people to see that creative people, artists, worked for a living. That was basically it. And it's quite catchy if you say, I'm coming up the Workers today, you know, it was part of that. So we've always had a socialist sort of like approach to what we do. But then, you know, we just were landed here and nobody really knew what we were or what we were doing because we didn't really know what we were and what we were doing. But like I said, it's had 10 years. So, you know, just sitting here listening to the stories and it doing its job, which is just to bring people together. That's all it is. It's a space. If we lose these spaces, people can't come together. They can't share their stories. They can't make their own stories. So, as a building, it works for what we saved it for, and it is now preserved. It has a special covenant on the building, so it can't be turned into something else. It can only ever be a community or gallery space.
Thank you, Gayle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank you all, but especially my family who's come today and inspired us all. I think we're all going to go out the front door now and sort of make placards and go protest.
Hope so, yeah.
But thank you.
Oh,